Hi everyone, so this video is going to be about one of my favorite random bits of urban planning here in Midtown Manhattan, and that is the pedestrian thoroughfare known as 6th and a Half Avenue. So this is to help pedestrians kind of avoid the busy traffic pedestrian-wise on 6th and 7th Avenues. So this was an idea that was kind of done about in the last 10 to 15 years, taking a number of kind of spaces like this and combining them into one kind of cohesive thoroughfare. So the space like we're in now is an example of what they call POPs, P-O-P-S, and those are privately owned public spaces. And a privately owned public space is an example of what they would call incentive zoning. So to allow a developer to kind of get exemptions to zoning, height, or similar things, they get the incentive to do that by creating more public space, like in front of this building here. So this building would have gotten some sort of zoning exemption in exchange for this public space. Come over here and you can see the kind of official logo of New York's POPs program. And so there were these number of these kind of, again, privately owned public spaces running both inside and out of buildings. And that became 6th and a Half Avenue. So we're going to cross here. You can see there is. Can't count on an Uber driver to respect the crosswalk, but that's New York for you. So always look before you cross. So this is an official crosswalk, as you can see here. Then we go into our next building. And this pedestrian thoroughfare officially runs from 57th Street, which is right where we started, all the way down to about 51st Street. And we're making our way through this building here. This thoroughfare is here. It's connected to the City Center Theater, as you can see by all the signage here. So when their performance is kind of let out, they can let out into this thoroughfare. But this is also great. Today it's a little bit bright, but we're expecting some storms in the afternoon. So if it was really bad weather right now, which fortunately it's not, you'd be able to kind of, again, walk through a significant chunk of Midtown and avoid the outdoors. All right, let's see if this car stops for us. Oh my gosh, they did. Always a miracle when that happens. So again, 6th and a Half Avenue, we're continuing on through here. And most of these buildings that we're kind of passing through or by or under, these largely date back to, on average, the 1980s, which was the kind of peak of that type of incentive zoning in New York City in the POPs program. And I mention this because, you know, a major complaint a lot of people have that I obviously share is that, you know, there aren't necessarily a lot of kind of pedestrian spaces. Some people feel that the city can be too crowded, but you come along here on 6th and a Half Avenue, you can see even on a Monday morning, it's pretty quiet here, particularly compared to, again, 6th and 7th Avenues, which we're between, which would be very, very busy. So we're coming up on probably the most famous and photographed section of 6th and a Half Avenue, which is this section here. And the reason it looks like this is, again, these are benefiting from the businesses and buildings that are around it. So here you have this lovely restaurant. That not only has all of this, obviously, kind of indoor seating, but even their outdoor seating is indoors. So it could be pouring rain and they would still be able to feel like they're dining outdoors here in this little section. There are also all of these tables over here. So there's the restaurant. And all of these other tables and benches here. Now, these tables and benches, these are open to the public. So if you grab lunch from a food truck or bring your own lunch, you can sit here and enjoy your lunch in this beautiful space. Absolutely gorgeous. This particular space, which is between 53rd and 54th Street on 6.5 Avenue is, in my opinion, one of the kind of underappreciated gems of Midtown in terms of great space. Now we're coming to this next space, which, while maybe not as nice, is really quite lovely and vibrant as well. You've got some nice kind of architecture here. Lots of benches. People always complain we need more places to sit down in Midtown. 6.5 Avenue in this kind of section, going a little bit further south, has got you covered. We're heading toward another great section over here. There's this like little, obviously fake waterfall coming up. Nothing super exciting, but again, just adding a little bit of atmosphere to the avenue here. All right, we're crossing 52nd Street through 6.5 Avenue. And this is a great section because as we get a little bit further south in this part of Midtown, you get a lot of great food halls and stuff. Like this is one of the urban space food halls that's here on 52nd Street. And this is one of the buildings that benefited from the kind of incentive zoning here. And one thing I want to mention is that they have a kind of great space inside of there as well. So if you ever if it's cold outside, you want to kind of go inside the building. They've got seating down there at the other end of the building, and that is another kind of privately owned public space that's open during business hours. I'm gonna double back here in a second, but as you get to what is kind of officially the end of 6.5 Avenue, which is here at 51st Street, you can see you enter this building, and in this building is Urban Hawker, which is a food mart that's themed around kind of like the Singapore style street foods. And you can actually cross through Urban Hawker straight through and go right to the next street over. So I consider it kind of an unofficial extension of 6.5 Avenue through that food court there. Now, if you want to kind of continue on through other parts of Midtown, again, maybe the weather's not great, you want to avoid being uncovered, which for the most part when you're here in 6.5 Avenue, you are fully covered. You'll see this structure here, which has benches and an escalator inside. Most people do not know what this actually is, but this allows you to get from this corridor here down into Rockefeller Center, where you can then continue all the way on toward 5th Avenue. So let's show you the route you would take to do that. So most people would never think to do this because why would you if you didn't know? But we're going down these escalators into this underground part of the interconnected office buildings here. So I want to note that this is not officially part of 6.5 Avenue here, but again, it's another great example of kind of the connections, these hidden connections, and again, bad weather friendly ways of getting around Midtown. So you keep going through here, go down this long corridor, and I'm kind of showing you the way here because this underground corridor connects multiple buildings kind of in between the section of Midtown we've been in and the larger Rockefeller Center complex. So the deeper you get in, it can be a bit of a labyrinth here. It's kind of easy to get turned around, particularly because you're underground and there's no obviously clear landmarks or signage to figure your way out.
We also have physical therapy department up in this house.
So we go through these next set of doors. I would add with this particular thoroughfare that we're in here, this underground concourse, which is very similar to certain systems that you can find in like Montreal and other cities. These are all connected to offices, businesses, and buildings. So the best time to access it is obviously on weekdays and during business hours. Some of these doors are occasionally locked on weekends and holidays and outside of regular kind of working time frames. So we just keep cutting through here. Again, you can see, like here, you might think you're going to turn. That will bring you up into that building. But if you're trying to connect to Rockefeller Center, that's not the way you're going to go. And I had done a custom tour earlier this year themed around this little bit of urban planning, and really has to, again, be done on a weekday, because that's when you're going to make sure you don't potentially run into any locked doors. You know you're going the right way when you see that sign directing you toward the subway. So you keep going down this corridor, through these revolving doors there. Whoa. And there's the official Rockefeller Center logo. So now we've made it. Now we're officially in the Rockefeller Center complex. Here's our guiding system. We're making our way down. And I'll wrap up here in just a few seconds, but once you're here in the complex, you can continue straight on this corridor toward the Rockefeller Center subway station, or you can kind of turn going in that direction, which will take you under all of Rockefeller Center. And from there, you could walk through Rockefeller Center's underground concourse straight to 5th Avenue. So I don't know if this is, you know, what kind of clickbaity videos would call like New York City hacks or something like that, but this is not a hack. It's obviously a public thoroughfare, just that one that most people do not know about. So if you are kind of into urban planning, or just, again, bad weather, need to make your way around Midtown, check out 6.5 Avenue and a whole series of other corridors and thoroughfares that are connected to it. So thanks for watching.